And now we are going to move at the question and answer session. Let me so first of all, we have a question from Mr. Harokopos. And I read in Greek. Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Για τους σημερινούς ομιλητές, ένα ερώτημα. Εάν στα μοντέλα που παρουσιάστηκαν ή τις προσεγγίσεις εκτιμήσεις έχει συμπεριληφθεί το risk management, εάν ναι, σε ποιο βαθμό επηρεάζει?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
The first 2 or 3 presentations about the economical situation, etc., a question came to me. Is the economical future promising or not? Or do we need new scenarios? I think Dr. Gonzola, this is for you as well.
Yes, I know.
It always gives me the impression that from the economic point of view, we are not certain about the future. Do you have any suggestion?
Yes, actually, we do not really need new scenarios because the 4 scenarios presented are a little bit generic. So they are constructed to include any aspect of positive or negative development or in between. But answering from my point of view, the future is not defined as it should be. For example, if people do not understand the importance of climate change, this is not in the agenda and the political agenda, we are moving towards an unsustainable scenario or a collapse scenario, for example, new forms of economic activity, and most of them are responsible for probably the decline of our quality of life, because if we lose biodiversity, then we are all dead. There are so many medicine and positive properties from biodiversity, and we do not really understand it because, well, let's say it as it is. Sometimes, if you are an economist, you look at the gross domestic product and you see that there is growth and everyone is happy. But we need a more interdisciplinary view of the world to understand and predict the future and create future fit policies for this region.
I think that also Dr. Prodromidis has maybe some suggestions.
The model I presented was based on historical data. That is how the economy used to run. And based on the analysis that I carried out, I made the proposal that we should tweak with the system. Where I found that in some areas we can improve the way we use capital, and in other ways we can leave it as it is. It serves us fine. So we can increase production by tweaking in some sectors with the capital, reduce it, and then wait and see what happens. But your question is broader than what I did. You want a bigger answer to the small issue that I checked about the Greek economy and how to focus on certain sectors rather than other sectors, but what to play with policy. From an economic point of view, what we should do here in Greece is focus on production. very much, too much of our welfare depends on demand. That is, on the state pouring money, creating demand for very good reasons. I mean, we have extenuating circumstances. We have a war now. We have to make payments. We have energy crisis, food crisis. We have a financial crisis a few years ago. But we rely too much on the state to pump up the aggregate demand, which brings along with it some inflation. We should focus on production. We should focus on things that increase our welfare and reduce prices, make us more competitive. This direction taking this direction is going to benefit the economy and our standard of living. And we can use Keynesian policy, as Keynes used it, that is demand side politics, when we have some extenuating circumstances. But our economy should be more supply driven if we can. Now, many things will happen. We may have wars. We may have climate catastrophes due to climate change. We should address this issue of climate change. We try and create a world of rules rather than to try and solve things through war as a global community. This does not mean we should not try and direct our economy to supply side policies to increase our productivity, reduce the cost of doing things, which may be very environmental. What you said, what you showed earlier, you showed how creating olive oil, which is very healthy, can damage our environment. We should put filters, we should be more careful. This does not affect the primary question in economics, how to proceed. We should try to increase our production and make it better, reduce the cost, even its environmental cost, but not rely too much on demand.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a comment on this. Regarding the mitigation of climate change, there is a great amount of research that refers to plant degrowth or even zero growth in a global level. Well, I do not know how this might be possible, but all I'm saying is that focusing all the way to growth and just diminishing the cost is not maybe the solution in everything.
Can I make two more comments?
Yes, of course.
One comment is for Dr. Himis. Don't forget, my friend, that governments need votes. So they don't care so much for everything else except the votes. And also I have a comment for Dr. Pierakos. The demographic problem in Greece is a big problem. And I'm not sure if there is any solution to that in the near future. Is there any solution? Is Dr. Pierakos there? No. Dr. Himis?
Yes.
It was very nice. It was very nice when you talked about the governments, etc., that they should do things. But don't forget that in Greece, at least, and I think everywhere, governments need votes.
I agree with you.
So they must have a compromise.
Well, that's why I also spoke about individual responsibility, because we can turn the need for votes that the government has so that the government does good things, so that it gets elected.
So,
rather than
yes,
telling lies to ignorant people, to χαϊδεύει τα αυτιά, as we say in Greek, so caresses the ears and gets elected. We want educated people who vote and governments who want to be voted by doing good things. So the fact that the government needs to be elected and politicians need votes doesn't mean they do irresponsible things. They can do responsible things and get elected.
So we go back to atomo, κοινωνία, πόλη, κράτος.
Yes.
This is the main thing which we should have in mind. Now I can see Dr. Pierakos.
Yes, Professor Gallokianos. Yes.
This demographic problem which you have, the fertility trap.
Yeah.
In Greece, I think we have a problem. Our population goes down and down and down, is reduced. Is there any solution to that?
Yes, we cannot say, we cannot have a unique answer on that. It's a very complicated problem, and that has to do first with the cost of raising a child. The second on the notion of what is family and how the society shows the family and support family. And the answer could not have, cannot be just, for example, a magic solution. We can hear that we have a solution, for example, we can find the solution on immigrants, or we can find the solution to give more benefits, or we can hear a lot of things. But as we can realize during those years that we study that issue with the university and Social Center of Research of National Center of Social Research, we can say that the Greek state had never saw the problem holistic. So never said that we have that problem and what can be done on this problem. And this is the first approach, that there is a need for a national policy. So the second, if we could go to more details, is to change the attitude for young people concerning about family. So family is not a problem for my career, for example, or for a young woman career. It's not a problem for having free time. It's not a problem for the cost of raising a child. So it's the attitude that the society could see the family. We can say that in northern countries like Sweden, that had faced that problem during the decade of 80s, they focus on the young population and how they increase their good attitude or good parenting for young people. So we can say that if we support young people to start a new life inside family, we can avoid a lot of problems that had to do with the relation, the society relation, and if we support family, because it's not the need, we do not need just to have children or to raise the live births, but we need a holistic approach on raising a good human, a human that can be part of the society, and in the future be part of the development of the country.
Thank you.
That is the need for the future of the society.
Can I ask a question, please? is there a relationship regarding how society perceives family in Greece, and that they perceive it as a low quality value? Because we had actually a research here at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, the Department of Economics, and family is really highly valued, even in young people, and regardless of profession or age, whatever you can think, there are always for them important. Family was important for them.
Yes, it is important, but it is very important for the family, for the people, but the notion is that the cost of the family is very high.
Oh, okay. So they are not motivated to start a family.
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
go back to policies.
So they believe that I need to have a high level of income, or to improve my career first, and then start a family. So we have the women, for example, or the young people say that it's very early to start a family under 30, or I have to improve my career, or raise my income in order to start a family, because it's very important for me, because they believe that they are not going to have any support from the state.
I understand. This reminds me a labor economics article, the Journal of Labor Economics by Koskio et al., and they discuss female labor productivity increase and the measure to and how it was correlated in an increase in labors. They had, as an example, Denmark that you mentioned as well. They have the highest female labor force participation, and they have the highest actually level of family care in Europe.
Yeah, yeah. It's a high level of in 1/3 of the population in Europe, 1/3 of the whole population in Europe, just 1/3. Have duties to care for other people, even young people or elderly. So the other 2/3 of population has no any duties or any responsibilities for the population. That means that, especially in Greece, a burden takes over most to the women.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
I would like to ask Dr. Maritza. She has a very important question here on the chat. If you can say it in public, it's very, very interesting. Microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So hello, Professor Kalakerinos, and hello, dear President, Dr. Psathas. Congratulations for this conference. Actually, it's not a question, it's rather a statement. It's very,
a comment.
It's a comment, yes. It's important to recognize that as a central message, that we should be able to understand the difference between understanding the system data that were presented today greatly by the presenters. So it's the system data, either concerning family policies or environmental policies or economic policies. And the other side is the actual state of the system, which is rather, if not complex, deeply complex, almost leading to chaos. So the more we receive data from the system, from this almost chaotic system, the more sustainable we will remain in the future. So those discussions like this today is very important to take place. And conferences like this is really, really important to take place, because we can actually see the difference between the data as stated here and the actually systems state.
If I have you finished, Dr. Maricha?
Yes, thank you.
In chemistry, we have what we say Le Chatelier principle. Every system is in equilibrium, and this equilibrium is affected by many parameters. If one parameter is changed, the equilibrium changes and chaos comes. What we are trying to do here is just to write down the problems. If they have solutions, yes, they are welcome. Maybe some of the problems will not have solutions, or we don't know yet the solutions. But anyway, this interaction is very important, because we learn, we understand, and maybe we will come back with some solutions in the future.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything else.
Totally agree. Yes,
I think that Mr. Harokopoulos would like to have a break now.
No. It's too early, Professor Kalokerinos. It's too early because on the Q&A part, there are some questions and we need answers. So, first question: does risk management included in theoretical or research papers we had here today? In a simple yes or no, risk management, because it affects everything. First, to Mrs. Canzola.
I'll take the opportunity to answer. Yes, we did not include risk management as we understand it in the theory of risk management, because we were in the second generation scenario, and this is for normative scenarios, which actually use projections for the future, and then you apply risk management techniques as we know it. But yes, we accounted for the risks that they are globally affect the future.
Okay, any stochastic model used in your papers, in your research?
And no, we haven't used.
No,
any.
okay. Professor Prodromidis?
No, I just used macroeconomic data.
Okay.
That's plain as that. Going by the average, what the average tells me.
Okay. Please, Mrs. Canzola, there are some other questions.
Yes, of
or
course.
you can proceed with them in order to conclude at 12:30 to keep the timelines of the schedule, and then to go for a break until 12:50. Okay.
Okay.
So
okay.
till 12:30, we have 7 minutes for the answers of some other questions. Thanks.
So this is your question here that I read. How the adoption and the implementation horizontally and vertically of technology in hierarchy with the public and private domain infuse the meaning of responsibility in decision-making process, and at the end of the day, the level of professionalism and soft skills of officer. I believe this is a question for Dr. Himis Athanasios.
Yes, what was the question again?
How the implementation of technology, either horizontally or vertically, in the hierarchy of public and private domain, infuse the meaning of responsibility in decision making and the policy makers.
Yeah, if I understand well, the way of infusing responsibility, increasing responsibility is through competition. And technology, basically what it does is that increases transparency and also competition, because it makes people's voice to be heard. The media report through the help of technology, so people get to know what's going on either in the private sector or in the public sector, and that's how
So transparency is the key. Everything at the table, and ethical responsibility doesn't matter.
Yes.
Oh, this is really interesting. And I believe that also the other question is addressed to you. The shift of responsibility to others' next future as an official indirect economic posture of government, and subsequently the acceptance of this policy by the ignorant about economic citizens, how affects the future of an economy and the social coherence? Corrective policy and measures?
I'm afraid I didn't understand the first how the question begins.
Okay. Well, when we talk about shifting the responsibility for policymakers to think about the future, but incorporate social decisions, this and social views, how policies are future συγγνώμη, δεν βρίσκω την αγγλική λέξη, πώς οι πολιτικές είναι οχυρωμένες απέναντι στο ότι οι άνθρωποι πολλές φορές δεν γνωρίζουν από οικονομικά ή δεν μπορούν να αντιληφθούν το επίπεδο του οικονομικού κινδύνου και του γεωπολιτικού ή οτιδήποτε. Δηλαδή, πώς πείθουμε τους ανθρώπους να έχουν υπευθυνότητα όταν θα πρέπει να δεχτούν και να δείξουν μια εμπιστοσύνη. Actually, I just a little bit shifted the question Mr. Harokopoulos made. So sorry for this.
Okay. It's one thing, the awareness of people, which goes into education things and things like that. The other pillar is institutions. So, for instance, what is the difference?
Is everything okay with your connection?
Excuse me, do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So I was saying that what is the difference, for example, between Greece? Yeah, I see here a message that my internet connection is unstable. Okay, I hope you hear me now. What's the difference between Greece?
May I please, Dr. Himis, close your camera and leave only the microphone.
Level of, I don't know, do you hear me? Because it froze.
Yes, we can hear you, but you better close your camera and just leave the microphone.
So there is a difference at the level of citizens. We can say that people in Sweden, for example, are more aware about recycling, that Professor Kalkerinos was saying, than people in Greece. This is the result of two things. One is education. So you educate children from the early age how they should recycle. This is one thing. The other thing is strong institutions, such as every municipality to have the special bins and inform the citizens of what we should throw in each bin. For example, I feel very sad every time I go to the blue bin to throw material for recycling, and I see inside trash, bags of trash. And I know that even if I throw the materials to be recycled there, they are not going to be recycled, because I know that if the blue bin is full of garbage, not to be recycled, the recycling is going to be wasted. So one thing is education. The other thing is policies from the local governments that induce people to recycle. Once we talk about recycling now, we took one example. And here is the obligation and the responsibility of local governments to do some work in order to educate and convince people. For example, we know that in other countries, people pay for their garbage depending on exactly what they throw away. They talk also here in Greece about such a system, but I don't know at what stage this system is and how it's going to be implemented. So there are, of course, policies that can induce people to be more responsible. Education is a long-term policy. If you start now with the children, in 10, 20 years, you will have responsible people. In the meantime, there are policies that can induce people to be more responsible. And this is through responsibility of local governments and other institutions, state institutions, public institutions. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I believe you did. I believe you answered the question properly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I actually, the last one is a comment of mine regarding Professor Kalakerinos' presentation. It's not really a question. So I read my comment. At some point, the mitigation of climate crisis is first a matter of education, e.g. societies to understand the danger of climate change. A second, to include all means of sustainable life, such as incorporating indigenous knowledge in combating climate change. Evidently, to include real sustainability in our everyday patterns of life. I believe that the main point of your presentation is that starting from one person is enough to start mitigating the climate crisis, and then we have the addition of all the people and the society as a whole and the government. Of course, nobody is actually denying the role of government in such as big goals.
If I can answer, I think the responsibility is for every one of us. We all have to realize and understand the problem. I am not pessimist. We can solve the problem, but I want people to understand that we have a problem. If we don't respect our environment will not respect us. And we have a responsibility towards our children and grandchildren, etc., etc. Don't forget that the United Nations Secretary said that we are going to hell. Now, this is important. I know that in Europe, we are doing things to improve our situation, but not in other countries. So I want everybody to go out and talk to neighbors, talk to friends, talk to relatives. Please respect the planet. So if each one of us, atomo, individual, can do something towards a good environment, then eventually everybody will work on that. This is what I'm trying to say. I am not pessimist. I know that we will save the planet, but we have to understand the problem. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Oh, well, you answered it really good. Thank you. So at this point, shall we?
I think that Dr. Maritza has another question.
Oh, yes, thank you, Professor Kalogerinos. Yes, there was a lot discussion about responsibility, but what about accountability? So being responsible towards another person is first being responsible towards myself. So it's a personal attitude. What about accountability, which is reversed, is towards the public, the agora? It's one to many. It's this relation from one to many people. What about accountability? Does Dr. Jimenez want to? I don't know if.
Yes, of course, you're right. And I think I mentioned at some point that one way to increase responsibility is the obligation of public agencies to report, to have reports, accountability reports. So, of course, responsibility without accountability go hand in hand. We cannot have responsibility without accountability if we talk about public and private organizations. You have to report and you have to be accountable of what you do, and that's how you are responsible.
Back to transparency.
Right. Accountability helps to be transparent.
Basically, more information. More information allows transparency, allows accountability. More information is more education, allows for responsibility. If you know more, you can do the good thing, you can avoid the bad thing. If you know it harms yourself, it harms your society, you can be more careful. We come back to education.
Indeed.
And that's a good wrap up.
But we face the over-information problem as well through the internet.
Yeah, that's a problem because we live in an era of information, and we also read about the fake news. So it's information along with critical sight.
No, it's a matter of imagination. We have a lot of information, but most people will look on a reality show and turn to the news and see what happens in Egypt or what happens in the big fora about the climate or whatever else in the economy or the news. It's a matter of conveying the information to the other person from the means that they to the means that they look at or they get their information.
I am really disappointed with the media here in Greece because I'm talking about the news that we see, that we can watch every day in the TV. All this time there was nothing about Ethiopia, the war there with between in the Tigray region, about Iran. We heard something a few weeks ago, then nothing, and we only deal about things that happen here locally. Okay, we talk a lot about Turkey. Okay, it's something that involves us. Beyond that, a little bit about Ukraine, and that's it. As if there is no other world out there. I remember a few decades ago, we were feeling proud when I went to the US, to the United States. I was feeling proud that I knew things that the average American did not about other parts of the world. And their news there were back then very locally oriented. And unfortunately, I see this happening in Greece now.
We have access to information. We choose not to follow it. If you turn on your TV, you can watch CNN. you can watch BBC, you can watch Deutsche Welle, you can watch I-24 Israel, you can watch so many channels that convey this information. We opt not to do it.
Gentlemen, we have to keep the timelines of program. So, unfortunately, interesting conversation, but we have to stop here for the first part of the day. So, due to the fact that Professor Grivas will not with us today due to a personal problem, we will be back at 1300. So Professor Himis, who is the next moderator, will be back at 1300. Back on the screen.
In 20 minutes.
Okay, Professor Grivas will be absent due to his unforeseen personal problem. He has to go to the hospital, that's why. So we are starting at 1300 with the first presentation of Professor Skoulos. Okay, so we
We're
have...
going to have 3 lectures.
Yes, so 3 lectures, 3 presentations, 20 minutes break until 1300, and we'll be back in 20 minutes. Thank you all. Thank you all for your presence and contribution. Thank you very much.